I was like that Jenga movement, right? I was like, you got Jenga. Like if you got Jenga, it was because you were phenomenal. You were really good, right? That's a style that Brazilians always had. I keep on doing it, and then 100 uniforms was transformed to 1,000, to a whole league, then other leagues, then other states. And I'm still figuring out if I'm good enough for every new level that I reach. Or, what I call 459ers, it's 459, they want to leave. Like I don't need people like that right now.
Welcome to the Football Economy, the show where we explore the business side of the beautiful game. Today, we have an exceptional story that embodies the entrepreneurial spirit in football. Our guest is Diego Hurtado, the founder and CEO of Diaza Football, a New York-based sports apparel company that's disrupting the kit supply industry. From starting at his mother-in-law's dinner table to outfitting Serie C clubs in Italy and emerging professional teams in the United States, Diego's journey is truly incredible. A story of pure resilience, authenticity, and building from the grassroots up. Diego, welcome to the Football Economy.
Hey, Rain, thank you, man. Thank you for having me. I hope we can have a great conversation. I'm sure we will.
So take me back to just before Diaza was founded in 2019. Explain where your story comes from and where this sort of like resilience that you're known to have started from.
Well, I think it comes from, where I'm from. I'm from Bogota, Colombia. I was born and raised in Bogota, Colombia. I was born and raised in a tough neighborhood. But I think my experience through, my childhood and when I was like 15, 16 years old, it was kind of seeing my dad, my mom, that resilience, that hardworking people, that it built who I am today. Obviously, then I moved to America, to Miami, and then when I started playing, so I was always playing soccer. Obviously, I was playing already professionally when I was in Colombia. Well, I was trying to play pro, but I was already training with the pros. I was 15 years old, and I was good. I was good enough to be with the pros. I was good enough to be there. Then I had to make a decision to come to the United States with my mom or stay there by myself. So definitely, I came with my mom. I'm a mama's boy, so I definitely came with her, and then I made the jump to the United States, right? Thinking soccer was going to be easier. Obviously, at that time, it wasn't what it is today, so it was very difficult to make it. But then, I went through college. I played in college, and then I played pro. And then obviously, when my dream was kind of like start getting away, because my dream was to play MLS, big money, big contracts. But the reality wasn't that way, right? The reality was, small contracts, small money. So then I had to always find another resource, another stuff to do, right? That was always me. I'm always been a sales guy, and me trying to come up with new things, new ideas to bring income to myself. I realized that in the garment industry, which my family was always in the garment industry, I could find a path to make money and just support myself, right? That's how everything started with Diaza. And that's how I did it. I started selling, to very low, like Sunday league teams, like little tournaments, and the neighborhood in Miami and Florida, then expanded to Texas, New York, and just like that, it started just growing and growing. And I feel like the discipline and the resilience to just pursue more, it was what it take me to where I'm at today.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say you spent close to 10 years pursuing your footballing career, and obviously a very impactful injury sets you on a different course. Well, the name Diaza obviously is well known what it means, but before Diaza, there was Jinga. Can you explain what went into the thought process to naming, your apparel business Jinga?
Yeah, when I was playing it, there was a club in Miami that I played for. They had big ambitions. They wanted to be pro, and they launched as the team was called Miami Dade. And what they did was they brought a lot of Brazilians to the team, like pro people. I mean, you're talking about players that were in Germany, in Europe, in Brazil. They brought every Brazilian, to this team. And fortunate enough, I was part of the team, and I was very close to these guys. So I started kind of learning the lingual, the words of Brazilians, and they always come with this terminology that it was, jogo bonito, Jinga. Jinga was a player that has style, that could play really well, that he was very talented. So that word, I always like that word. I always like that Jinga movement, right? I was like, you got Jinga. Like if you got Jinga, it was because you were phenomenal. You were really good, right? That's a style that Brazilians always had. So at that time I was creating the company. I was working. I started this whole thing working for other upcoming brand, but obviously the founder didn't have the same vision that I had. So I had to leave them, and then I had to focus on my own. And then I started thinking, how do I'm gonna name my company, right? So in that time I was playing with these players, and I was all Brazilian minded, and the Portuguese words and all that. So I was like, I need to name it something that is unique, and that it has a style and that is related to soccer, right? So at that time, I thought Jinga was the best word to name the company, and I did. I trademarked it, Jinga Sportswear. But then when you trademark, you have to wait like a year to see if somebody else comes and it tells you, hey, this has been taken. And that's exactly what happened. When I trademarked it Jinga, I worked the whole year, the marketing ideas and everything based on Jinga wear. But then the results came, and there was already other companies called Jinga, and you have to make a decision, business decision, right? I think that was my first business decision, like big one, is like you either change your name or you have to battle them legally. And at that time the money wasn't the strong part of the company. So I decided to change the whole name. But then you have to start deep searching. Okay, now what I want to do, like I need to find a word, I need to find a meaning behind it. I need to find something that is not taken. So it was tough call, but something that I had to make.
Right. Yeah, well understood. So in 2019, you were playing in local leagues in Miami, if I'm not mistaken, and a teammate needed uniforms, and basically because the supply disappeared, I think 100 uniforms, and you were able to just say, "Yes, I can do this." And then you contacted your aunt. But where is that sort of like certainty and confidence, knowing that this comes with its own, let's call it headache, responsibilities, and you're not certain that you can deliver, but you're certain that you can make it happen. Where does that confidence come from?
I think it comes from my survival. Back in the days, I had to survive. Like I had to make it no matter what, right? To me, it was more about because things weren't easy for me to get. When I was playing in it was called Equidad Seguros. Right now, it's a professional team. By the way, one of the funds from Ryan Reynolds from Wrexham, they bought the team. That I play for. I used to play for that team, but I was never. When you play for those teams, you either had to pay or you had to be very talented, right? But I never had the connection to play in that team. So my survival was like, how can I make them see me, right? So I went to the training campus, and I was like, look, I think I'm good enough. Give me a chance, and if I'm not good enough, just get rid of me, right? And I think that's exactly what I've done my whole life. Like I show, and then I figure it out. I mean, I don't even know if I'm good enough to make this, but I think I am. So let me get into the game. Let me try to do this, and then we both figure it out if I'm good enough or I'm not. Luckily, I have that effort, I have that discipline, and I'm always trying to learn if I'm good at this or not. And that's exactly what happened on every stage of my life. Coming to the United States, going to college, I wasn't sure. I didn't speak English. I didn't know the language. I didn't know if I could live by myself. I didn't know if I was good enough to be in the team. I just something deep inside of me knew that maybe if you give that chance, let's find out. Let's find out if you're good enough. Let's find out if you could do this. So that's how I approach life. And it comes from that. When I was little, when I was in the neighborhood, it was like, let's figure it out. I always question myself in the good sense. I always ask, are you good enough to do this? I mean, I don't know. Let's figure it out. But then it comes with a risk, because if you're not strong enough, you could go down, like, oh, this is not for me. And you go down and you never try new things. luckily I'm always, even if I'm not good enough, I just try new things, and when the uniforms came, it was funny because I didn't know anything about uniforms. I didn't know anything about the market. I didn't know anything about the business. I just knew that I needed the money, right? And then I asked the guy, how much was the uniforms? And then he said, I don't remember, but he said $500. And then, I made calculations and maybe I can make $200 in this quick transaction. So that was kind of like, okay, I need money. I don't know if I'm going to deliver or I'm good at this, but let me just try. And then I did, and I was very good at it. So I keep on doing it, and then 100 uniforms was transformed to 1,000, to a whole league, then other leagues, then other states. And I'm still figuring out if I'm good enough for every new level that I reach. And it's a learning process, but it's also something that it comes from deep inside. Like if you don't want to take on the risk, if you're not bold enough to say yes, I could do it, and then figure it out, I don't think it's gonna be easy for anybody. But you gotta be bold enough to say yes and then to deliver, to make everything
Right.
possible to deliver.
Right, right. So if we deep dive into the business growth, so you start as a one-man team to begin with, and obviously eventually you now have your wife as a director in the company. But the early days, and I guess now you have over 30 people in the business, probably more. But yeah, so in the early days, you're struggling with doing the design yourself, doing the operations, doing the sales. I mean, you said you're a sales guy. How did you juggle all of this and then making sure that you felt that you're actually on the right path as opposed to chasing a side hustle that might not be sustainable over a long period of time?
Well, I feel like at the beginning of every stage, everything that you want to build, especially a company, a brand, obviously, we always hear these terms of, being an entrepreneur and wearing many hats. I think that's a must, right? Like you have to do it yourself because it's an idea that you have that nobody else have and nobody else believe. For me, in order to get better at that, and to do the right thing, stay focused, and like you say, I had to do sales. At the beginning, I had to learn design because I didn't know how to design. So I went to YouTube and I started learning, Illustrator, Photoshop, and then I started making my own designs. But I had to be very disciplined to learn that. I used to wake up 4:30 in the morning and study YouTube from 4:30 to like 7 in the morning. Then I had to go train. Then I had to, do my own things. Then at the afternoon it was sales. And it was like, okay, I gotta create this routine and I gotta be very disciplined because this is something that is helping my life. Now you gotta find value on whatever you do it. It gotta be valuable to you. So the brand become very valuable because first of all, it was bringing some income that I didn't have at the moment. But then I started, loving it. I started, having passion for it because it was soccer. I was like, okay, maybe there's other way that I could build something within soccer and I still love it, because I was always afraid to leave soccer, and stop being a player and I don't know, go back to an office and doing something, yeah, I don't know, selling insurance or my in my mind was being a cop, right? Because I studied criminal justice, so I have a bachelor's in criminal justice. So then my plan was like, if I don't make it in soccer, I'm gonna be a cop. And then when I became a citizen in the United States, they even offered me a job. It's like, yo, you could do, border patrol and all this, and the salary was high, but I didn't feel the passion for it. I didn't feel like that was for me. So I feel like if you're building something, first of all, you gotta be extremely disciplined, but that discipline comes from your passion, from your belief on what you building. So I feel like me selling, which is I'm passionate about sales. Me selling, it make me realize, okay, I have to wear these many hats right now, but eventually I can start, maybe finding other people that believe in the brand and that is gonna help me doing that. And that's exactly how it happened. Before I was the designer, I was the sales guys, I was the accountant, I was everything, right? And then, little by little, I started finding people with the same vision and this is the other thing. Then you have to sell your brand to your own employees. You have to tell them, hey, look, I have this brand, I have this logo. You got to believe on it as well. Because maybe you don't have the money to pay them the salary that they need at the moment, right? So you got to make them believe. And if you don't have that, if you don't have that influence in other people, it's gonna be difficult, and you're gonna keep wearing the same hats, for years. So I think the faster you put this passion, this belief in other people's minds, the faster you can stop wearing so many hats.
Hmm. And if I'm not mistaken, during the COVID period was when you had that burst in growth. I mean, COVID was a nightmare for a lot of people, but for you, certainly, Tim, first of all, let me take a step back. You built the foundation around this by partnering with tournaments. So, youth tournaments, grassroots, just explain that strategy. I mean, it's easy in hindsight to say this is what you have in front of you. But let's take a step back and say, what were you thinking when you went towards that strategy? Why that strategy? And how did it work out? I mean, it's worked out great, but in terms of the incremental step, how was that for you?
Well, when I started, I did youth tournaments because before youth tournaments, what I did was adult tournaments. The tournament that I was playing on. There's a I don't know in the UK, or even I think in South America they do it, but there's tournaments here like semi-pro level. Then there's a lot of money involved. Like bets, and it's like another type of soccer. They pay you per game, and I think that's how I lived when I wasn't in a team, right? Like people used to pay me to play, like $200, 150, 80, 60, whatever it was, the game. They call me and, hey Diego, I had 60 for this game, I had 200. Can you come and play for us? And in that world, there's a lot of teams for that. It's a whole separate business, right? And then my strategy was to go after them, to go, hey, I play for your team, pay me this much, but look, I sell uniforms. So I used to play for a lot of teams, and that's how I kind of started, the market of my own product. So I would tell them, and I joke around because I tell them, look, I had the whole package. I had the player and I had the uniform. So, you better take me. And it worked. It worked a lot because they gave me the opportunity to play and to do the uniforms. So I went after all that market, and I secured tournaments. There's big tournaments here in the United States. Some of them are like, Delaware Cup, Copa Mariachi. There's like huge tournaments around that. It's a huge community. So I kind of went after that. And then with that, there was like, hey, I have a youth academy. I have these youth programs. And then, start kind of spreading out like that. So that's how the whole strategy came in, and I had the vision because I was involved. I was part of that community. I was in the community. I was a player. I was a fan. I was an spectator, right? Like when these tournaments happen, like I saw around, and I was like, wow, this is a huge community. There's a lot of people here. There's a lot of tents. There's a lot of business to be done in here. I talk to the people that sell food. I talk to the people that sell other jerseys, like fake jerseys, Adidas and all Nike stuff, because there was a lot of Central American people in there. And then I talked to them like, what do you need? What do you feel like? What are you looking when you partner up with a brand or with a uniform? At that level, some of them are like, yo, I need a cheap product. That's it. So then you have to battle with the price. But then, okay, how do you battle with the price? So how do you raise your price? So then you have to understand and make them understand, listen, maybe I can bring you a better quality, better terms. I can help you with marketing size, because you need players, right? That's the other thing. Then I attach that. You need players. I know a lot of players because I knew tons of players, pro players, and then I was like, look, I know a lot of players. Bring me to the team. Let's make the uniforms, and I build you the team. It was like a whole structure, but because I was part of the community, so I think I understood their needs because I was involved with them, and that helped me a lot. That helped me a lot because even to this day, I know exactly how the leagues work. I know exactly how the teams are built. I know exactly how they need to, find a field, find a stadium, find players. I have put sporting directors in professional teams. I have find them professional players. I have like a little agency. I joke around because I have like a little agency of players that I don't even charge anything. It's just that I like to help my, old teammates that don't have a team right now and put them into professional contracts. Like
Mm,
I am the whole package, So, but
mm.
I learned that from that market, from that small community. I think you got to be deep into the community to understand why you're selling and why you're doing it.
So you're talking about understanding community values. So like I think it's very clear that tournaments built Diasa. So obviously the the soccer tournaments, Copa Mariachi, Copa Delaware. These are all local competitions that you are like sponsors of. But I wanted to also like deep dive into like Diaza battles. So, that's basically two Diaza teams that compete against each other. What has been the catalyst of that? What has been the dividend? How have you benefited off that?
Well, it was funny because before, obviously, it was, we started when we kind of leave the market of, the semi-pro, then you get in the United States, you get, there's a whole semi-pro market, which is like the bigger leagues, right? Like the UPSL. UPSL is one of the biggest league in the world. Like they have more than 800 teams. It's this huge league around the United States. They have teams all over every single state. So then we were part of that league, and we have more than 300 teams in that league. And what we realized is, okay, now, yeah, there was a Diaza team in each state, but now there's 5 teams in each state, 10 teams in each state, and they were playing against each other. So in our marketing strategy, it was like, how can we tell people this? How can we make this like a drama? How can we make this like a competition? How can we make this more interested? So the Diaza battle concept came out of that when there was a final and I was playing on the final and I was playing against a team that was wearing Diaza. And then I realized, and the game was good. The game was intense. It was goals. It was, it was drama. It was like fights, whatever. And I was like, yo, this is a good narrative to tell people. So then and that time I already have my marketing guy, and then I brought him. I like, look, next game I want you to come. I want you to record everything. I want you to tell the score. I want you to create FOMO drama out of this. So people know that there's two the other teams that are battling for a tournament. So that concept came out really good because then we started putting money into it, rewards, discounts, like whoever the Diaza team was gonna win that game, even if it was just a regular league game, if it was a friendly, we treated it like it was a final, for us, for the brand. It was a final, and we talked to the owners and we tell them, listen, we don't want to bet or anything like that, right? Like it was not betting or nothing. It was just like, hey, look, you guys, you both are Diaza, and we want to reward your efforts to make it to the final. So whoever wins this game, Diaza is gonna give $1,000 to the game.
Mm,
Diaz is gonna give you the next training set for free, stuff like that. It worked really well, and it still works. So we're still doing it, and now we had to kind of, before it was like you get one game once in a while. Now since we have so many teams, now we had to kind of reduce it to just the finals. Whoever make it to the
mm.
final, and if it's two Diaz battle team, then we'll do it. Because before it was like we realized we're spending a lot of money on this. So let's kind of cut it down to the final stages. So, but it was
Right.
a great marketing move.
Right. So, I mean, I think we haven't talked about what the name Diasa means. Obviously, you've spoken about, or you've dropped hints about what the main name means itself. Obviously, discipline, resilience, focus, leadership qualities, mental strength. I see a lot of those things embedded in your personality. But then when we look at Diaza as a company, if we're talking about the business fundamentals, your strategy, your competitive edge, what is it exactly? What have you set out to be to begin with, and what have you evolved to be with now?
That's a great question, and we were actually talking about that last night with my marketing guy because he had this bright idea about Diaza, and he realized that Diaza itself, the word doesn't really mean anything. I say Nike. Nike means the god of victory, right? Adidas was the two names of the founders, and Puma means, Puma, an animal. He's like, how do you come up with Diaza? What I remember was that I found it in a kind of like old dictionary from the ancestor word of Colombians, right? And he says, discipline, perseverance, leadership. You got to be a leader. But now it's like, okay, that's the only meaning of Diaza. And we given, like, if you go and Google Diaza, there's nothing else related to Diaza. Like we're not a Greek word, we're nothing. We build the definition of the word. And having said that, I said this because that comes with the brand. But then you install, what I did was I wanted to install those same frameworks in the company, right? So everybody that works at Diaza needs to have those values. Like if you work here, you have to be Diaza. You have to be somebody that extremely believes in the company and the vision and the goal, like you have belief. First of all, to me, is belief. If you believe on what we're building here, come here. If you believe more than anybody, if you truly believe, I will see it, because when somebody believes and are involved in this, they stay more than they're supposed to stay. They bring more ideas than they're supposed to bring. They do more, you could tell right away. I learned that I could tell right away who really believes and what we're building and who doesn't. So to me, belief is number one. That's the first trait that I look when I hire people. Do you really believe? Why Diaza? Why do you want to be part of this? We're not Nike, we're not Adidas. We have another thing going on. Why do you want to be here? So that first question to me is very important. Then it's like, are you disciplined enough to be here? Do you have what it takes to be here, which is discipline? You got to be extremely disciplined. You got to, get things done. You got to be resilient, because there's a lot of challenges that comes within the brand, within the business model. Are you willing to accept that? And do you have what it takes to to be up to the challenge. And then third, you gotta have some type of knowledge. But to me, that's the less important because you can learn that here. I have a lot of people that didn't know anything about soccer. They become so passionate, they become so into the vision, into the business, that now they know everything about soccer. My marketing guy, one of them, he never played soccer before. But he didn't know anything about the leagues. He didn't know anything about anything. But me and him sit down every single day and I explain, look, this is what a semi-pro team looks like. This is what a pro team looks like. This is the vision that I have. Can you and me build something great that is going to take us there? So to me, it's, belief, discipline, and then the courage to pursue something new for your life and for the brand.
Right. I mean, so talking about pro teams, so you made early investments in women's football with Brooklyn Football Club in the US and Donorama in Italy. So I think you also have you signed a female ambassador called Luana Grabies. What's your vision for women's football when it comes to Diaza, and how you want to maintain that competitive edge against competitors, since you are obviously not at the same level as the Nikes and Adidas yet?
Yeah, for me, women's sport is increasing, extremely fast in the industry. Not just in Europe, but also in the United States. Obviously, we have the NWSL, which is the top league of the women. But then is great that other products come along, like the USL Super is a first division league which Brooklyn plays in, right? When we had the opportunity to be with the women, first of all, we wanted to have a first division team, and the woman gave us the chance to get to that level sooner than the men. And that was the first kind of like wake up call for me. I was like, wow, we're gonna have a first division team and it's woman. So that means woman is becoming very important in sports, and is bringing opportunities for other people, to be part of that, like sporting directors, like even players. I'm pretty sure that the Brooklyn players didn't know or didn't have in their head, oh, I could play Division 1 soccer so soon. Like they brought a lot of players from college, from Division 3, Division 2 from Europe to play in this Division 1 new league of women. So women's sports were opening doors for players, for brands, for businesses. So that was my kind of like wake up call, that I was like, okay, women's sports is here and it's gonna stay and it's gonna open a lot of doors. So let's shift, or let's focus a little bit more or a lot more on this sport and the women's side. And after we signed Brooklyn, like a new world open, right? So then you start hearing stories about coaches, about women, about how really women are involved in this sport. And that to me was fascinating. Obviously now I have my wife that she runs the company with me, and she even become more obsessed about this. Like she's always been about, powerful women and being confident. And I love that. And now I see the passion she has for this, because now she has something else to relate to, not just soccer, but now she's like, okay, I have my woman to relate to. I have these stories to tell. I have these people that I can work with. And just seeing that passion in her eyes, it made me even more passionate about women's sports. So that's why I wanted to extend to Italy and even to other markets right now. I want to support the women. I want to support the sport because it has tremendous potential, and I feel, it's opening new doors. Right now we're talking to a whole league, a women's new league, pro league. So, hopefully what we've done so far with Brooklyn, with Donnarumma, with other clubs, youth clubs for women, for little girls. I think people have seen that, and that's why we had this kind of meetings. So that's great to see it, and I love that, man. And I hope the women's sport just keeps on growing, and I'm pretty sure it will. So especially here in the
Right.
United States.
Right. So I mean, so it's quite clear that now you've caught the attention of big brands, the Nikes, the Adidas, the Pumas, and so on and so forth. What are they now doing to counter you? As you yourself have stated, business is more or less a more sophisticated version of war. So how are you basically creating a moat around your competitive edge? And what are you trying to do to instill that mindset of wartime to your employees to understand that you actually are facing a big competitive landscape and trying to make sure that you can compete efficiently?
I think the Nikes, the Adidas, the Pumas, they're just too big. They're just too big, too busy. The thing is, like, the world is extremely big. The pie is too big, and you can definitely cut it in a lot of slices. When you understand that, you can see a whole new market that these big brands can't even reach out to, right? Let's say Nike, right? Nike is worried about United States national team, the World Cup, the Champions League. Adidas, Puma, they only worry about Real Madrid, Liverpool, all those big teams. Like, that's their worry. That's what moves the needle for them. They're not gonna care about semi-pro leagues. They're not gonna care about semi-pro team. They're not gonna care about the underdogs. We are underdogs. We help the underdogs to raise and be somebody. That's the market we're in. I'm not gonna go after Real Madrid. That's impossible. That's not real, you know? And that's what I tell teams. Sometimes teams go like, what's the difference between you and Adidas? And I was, look, if you're looking for Adidas, we're not the brand, right? We're not. I'm not Adidas. I'm not going to bring you the product they put in. I'll probably bring you something better, something quality, similar quality. But the idea is the marketing, the everything behind is going to be way better than them. The personal touch. You're talking to me right now. But let's be straight up. I'm not Adidas, but you're not Real Madrid. So if you're looking for Adidas to treat you like Real Madrid, there's a lot of work that you have to put into the market as well. So when people kind of like, oh, wait, time out. Yeah, he's right. I'm not Real Madrid. So if I'm looking for Adidas, maybe that's not the right partner for you. And I'm not saying you have to go with Diaza. I feel like teams need to find the right partner at the right stage. If you're an upcoming team and what you need is, you know, be different, be like with designs, and because that's how you caught attention to people, with being a nice design, doing customize, doing that. Maybe a brand like Diaza, it is for you, because we do customize, because we help you building this whole business plan, because we help with revenue increases on sales and stuff like that. And when you really touch into your community, they don't care what brand you're wearing. They only care about what they see on the jersey. And if you could actually have a design that penetrates the community, that identifies with the community, they're gonna buy it no matter what. No matter if it's a Nike, no matter if it's a Diaza, no matter if it's this or that. In fact, and what I tell everybody, like USL Championship, second division teams in the United States, you partnering up with a global brand is hurting your own team, because these global brands are not going to help you in any way. They're not. They're going to give you a template, right? They're going to give you a white jersey with the Nike logo, with whatever it is. They're going to give you that, and that's it. And then it's like, look, this is my sale. This is how much you got to pay me. And then they walk out. That's not a partnership. That's not even a
Mm,
sponsorship. That's just having a price, you know? Now, if you have a relationship with Nike that they go and like, you know what, I'm going to give you 200K because you're building this team, and I'm going to be a free pro. Oh, man, don't even look anybody else. Go for that. But in
right.
reality, 0.01% of the teams have that. So you just gotta look for the right partner. And that's why that transparency and that understanding of the business as a whole is what make us tell people, hey, look, if you want these global brands, go ahead. But if they don't pay attention to you, this is us, and we are gonna pay attention to you, and we're gonna give you the treatment they give to Real Madrid. That's what we want to give to you. And that message has really give us a lot of business, because people really understand now. Hey, I don't need the global brand. I need the right partner, and that's what the other is.
Right. You need the right partner, and you basically have said that you've grown through word of mouth. Basically, I mean, if we're talking about sort of like your growth philosophy, so you started with zero marketing spend, as you have highlighted in all the interviews. What I want to understand now is, are you still reinvesting all the profits in the business, and also have you taken any sort of like outside investments now, or are you looking to do that in the future?
For right now, we did have some investment last year from a private equity group. It was a great deal. It was enough at the moment. We needed it, to grow to be at the stage that we are right now. When you build a brand, it's all about brand awareness. It's hard. It's hard because people got to recognize who you are. And I think I spent a lot of time, a lot of resources, a lot of money, profits from my business to create a brand awareness. To finally sit down and ask people, hey, do you know who Diaza is? And they had the answer for it. At least in this side of the world. And when you build that, you need a lot of money for that. You need to be in a lot of community. You need to be in a lot of tournament. You need to sponsor big teams. You need to sponsor athletes. You need to sponsor the people. So it's a balance, right? And let's say we did an event with Ronaldinho, and that was massive, but it was a lot of money involved. Ronaldinho is not cheap, so so I needed investment not for that event, but after that, because after that it comes the effect, right? Now everybody wants Diaza because Ronaldinho was worried. So everybody started wondering, who is Diaza? Let me call them, let me contact them. And it's up to us to close that deal, to close that lead. Ronaldinho was an immense lead generator for us. Very good marketing strategy that we did. It was a great move. But then it comes with kind of like, okay, now we have all these leads. Let's close it. Do we have the logistics? Do we have the right system? Do we have the right product? And we did, but then we had to improve every single year. We had to improve something better. Right now, we're talking to a national soccer team, and to deliver to that we need the right framework, structure, system. So you got to pour money into that, and the bigger you get, obviously, the bigger capital you need. And right now, we are actually, good as we are. The equity money that we have, it was fine to that point. Right now, I'm kind of like, okay, seeing my options, see if we could get another, you know, um, partner that can be with us. Definitely, we always open to it. But I also learned, from this investment that I gotta find the right people. So people that really believe on this, not just in the numbers, but in the brand and in the potential that these have. When you don't partner with the right people, it gets tough. It gets real tough for people to see it.
Right. So talking about expansion, have you considered looking at what's your plan for the Middle East as a region?
Middle East is I think it has a lot of potential. I haven't seen a brand in the Middle East like us, let's say, that in the United States is a common brand and is closing deals. I think the Middle East is huge market that is on tap. It's for me. I just need to understand better how it works. And I feel like to do that, I gotta go there. I gotta embrace like when it happened when I was here. That I embraced the community that was involved. I think that has to happen in order for you to be successful in any new market. And until we do that, I can go over there, because we can sign one or two teams, by people telling us, because we actually have, people reaching out from them or other contact that is kind of directors over there. But what I'm afraid of is just to sign one or two teams and then that's it. No, I want to see the whole scope. I want to understand how the business work over there. I want to understand why there's not another brand like us over there, because if there's no one, something is happening. And it's because there's just not somebody like Diego that can create a brand. Then we have a winning market over there. So definitely we're looking into that market, and with the right partners, with the right people, with the right structure, with the right uh analyzing that market, I think it has a lot of potential.
So yeah, good point. So you need to have like sort of like a presentation strategy and localization strategy in that sense, which makes sense. In terms of your product innovation, um, how are you, sort of like planning for the future in terms of like sustainability being a key part of, the discussion when it comes to apparel, but also how are you making sure that you're resilient when it comes to the trade shocks, with political, policy changes? And I know you have factories across the region. How does that factor into your strategy going forward?
And that is man, you asking the right questions. It is hard. It became hard when like Trump and tariffs and all that. I realized, oh wow, we need to learn about this now. We need to learn about how is this going to affect our workflow, how is this going to affect our profits. So then you start diversifying and looking for other factories, partners, and even people that know about the technologies, the sustainability, all that kind of stuff. You need to learn about that, and luckily I have found people that are passionate about that. Are passionate about, hey, this is a new product, this is the new fabrics, and they always bring it to me and we talk about it. And then we find the right aspects to it. Obviously those fabrics, those new technologies, they're not cheap, you know. So you gotta, if teams want that kind of technology, you got to tell them this is gonna come with a price, and a lot of them go for it. We have a team called Ann Arbor. They are all about that, and they're a great partner. We've been with them for like 4 years, and we're trying to build this new product for them. Because they have these great ideas about this, and they're very passionate about it. So by them asking for it and being willing to work with us about that, it made us, we had to learn about it, right? And diversifying our factories. Now we open the market in South America even more in Argentina. So we had to kind of like tap over there, have factories in Central America, factories in South America. Then you have other factories in Asia, and why not? So it is important to learn. And the way we battle these kind of things is like, we now diversify the work. So if it comes from Asia to the US and it's, the tariff is very high, then let's do it in Central America. If it's not in Central America, let's do it here. We need a shift and have this network of factories that allow us to maintain our profits or margins and to obviously deliver the right product, because every factory needs to match the Diaza product.
Right. So I'm assuming your revenue streams are diversified. And if so, let's call it, what is the fastest growing revenue stream? Where within your business is showing the fastest growth from a revenue standpoint?
Definitely is the revenue standpoint is more about, is it comes from the semi pro leagues, the youth academies that we have, and the third one will be the fans from the pro teams. But definitely, these two are top for us.
Okay. And then in terms of like maintaining this competitive mode. So right now, I'm sure you're aware there are other competitors who are trying to do what you're doing, basically try to take some market share from you guys. What's the strategy to make sure that you're not only growing, sort of like taking part of the existing pie that you say, but also trying to fend off competitors that are coming into your same market? Like for instance, one question I have around that is, you're from Colombia, you're from Bogota. You basically said Bogota is like there are two different parts, the affluent part and the very extreme poverty. You understand that market. Currently, are you the current, like, biggest, let's call it, existing shareholder of that market? Like, do you have a consolidated hold in that market, or are you competing with other entrants at this moment in time?
No, I think a strongholder of that market. I think I say you gotta understand, right? And when there's a deep understanding of their market, even if somebody comes and try to take your business, they need to know more than you. Whoever comes to the Diaza teams offering a better product, they need to make sure that they're working harder than me. They need to make sure that they're delivering faster than me. They need to make sure, because sometimes it's not even about the money. I have competitors that come to my teams and they offer money, put money into the table. Look, I offer you the sponsorship, but we have created that loyalty, and that we had teams that have been with us since I was Jinga. You talk about 6 years with the team, because Diego Hurtado was always been present and wanted to be in front of the business, and I'm always true to my word. And if I tell you this is the plan, we're gonna grow this way, we're gonna deliver no matter what, then we make sure that we deliver. And I think that's the biggest asset that we have. Other than the marketing, other than the product, is the way we do things. So I tell you, like if somebody, and it has happened, don't get me wrong, like people come, some people need money at the moment, right? Like we had this great team called Boston, the street, and another brand came, they offered some money, bigger sponsorship, and then they took the deal. But they took the deal, and I'm gonna tell you why. Not because of the money, because or lack of responses. Right at that time, I had this sales guy that I was in charge of that account, and this guy was in vacation the whole December, like almost the whole December. I didn't even know. I mean, his vacation was 15 days, and he took the whole December. What happened was that he didn't answer to that team, and because there was not an answer, then the team was like, you know what, I'm gonna live with the other brand. So in fact, it wasn't because of the offer; it was because of our own self. It was because of our fault. It was our fault that we lose that account. But that says a lot. That means that the team was loyal to us. And even if there was an offer in the table better than the one he had with us, he wanted to stay. Other thing was that we didn't answer. And that was my fault as well. So and it sucked because I had a great relationship with the guy. I still have a great relationship with him. And even to this day, he tells me they're not faster than you. They're not delivered. They're all work harder than you. So I'm with them right now, but I want to come back. I promise you, that's exactly what he said. And I'm waiting for him to come back because I know he's gonna come back. But I'm sure he comes back because what I tell you, because of work ethic. So whoever comes after our teams, just make sure that you work double. Just make sure that you're ready to deliver what we deliver, and just make sure that overall you offering a better service. Because product, you can get product anywhere you can get product. If you have a team and you want cheap product, go to Central America, go to China, go. Product is everywhere. It's just what are the extras that you get in with the product? The service, the community. You got to make sure about that, and we've been very good at that. So
So it seems
I'm not scared for them to come.
So it seems like what you're saying is that your competitive advantage is experience. You deliver top class experience to your clients, your customers. So that's well understood. So my question to you is: we're talking about your machine, which is your team, which is your company. How is it structured? Who reports to you? How's your day to day structured? How are you checking their performance, the KPIs, so on and so forth? I just want to understand for the audience to give them because we have a very diverse listener group, from investors to executives to people who just want to enter the sports industry. Try to paint an understanding of what your business is like, so that we understand what an elite performing institution looks like.
Of course. Well, right now the way it's structured, we have each department. Obviously, I'm the head of the company, and then I have kind of my right hand. The people that always report to is Stephanie, which is she's like my executive assistant, and then obviously we have the different departments. We have our new COO, we have CFO, but then we have the executive level, which is sales. Then we have marketing. Then we have something that is very important in our company is the design department. The design department is to, because everything we do is kind of design, and they have to be very creative. They have to improve every time. They have to come up with new ideas, 3D models, movement, videos, all that kind of stuff. Then we have the marketing side, and then we have our IT, and then financial. That's kind of like the structure of the company. Each one has a head of each department, and then they all report to the CEO and the CFO, and then we kind of us three kind of just build the company around that. I like to have internal meetings with each department always. I like to be very involved. Sometimes I can, sometimes I'm not. I don't have enough time. But the way I distribute my time is what can improve within Diaza, the whole Diaza scope. So if I see that we're failing at something in each one department, I kind of dedicate my time to that department. And then I have to grasp every feedback. Why isn't it working? Why is it working? Why are we failing? Why are we succeeding so much? Like I need to understand each, and I make sure that I listen to them, because each executive has, a different, it has a team, right? And I don't really get involved in those teams too much, but sometimes I like to see the perception of other people. Sometimes I go and talk to some of the, these teams, some people in this team, and I ask them about their leader. How do he treat you? Is he doing the right thing? Is he asking the right question? Do you feel like you could talk? Do you feel like you're expressing what you feel? Those things for me is important, because I'm not the smartest person in the company. I just like to listen a lot and learn from them. So is my day is about learning about each position, learning about how we can take the asset to the next level, and networking. I think that's my biggest work right now is to, you know, take my network to the next level? You know, how can I meet new people? How can I meet new investors? How can I meet, people that are doing the same thing as me, or even better? You know, how can I learn from a bigger company than Diaza? That's
Mm.
the rooms that I'm trying to get into and that I have been into. So that's how can I spend my whole time.
Right. So from what I get is that you're the chief problem solver at Diasa, but also like from a recruitment standpoint, what is the recruitment like for you? Like, are you involved with the final interview step? Because obviously, as you can imagine, culture is very important to you. Diasa has a very strong culture. I mean, that's what it looks like externally. So I can imagine that you have a sort of a say in terms of like the kind of people that are coming into the company.
Yeah, definitely. Every time I'm gonna hire somebody new, they know my standards. They know it has to be approved by me. But I believe a lot in every head of the department. So if in sales, my head of sales tells me, "Hey, I think this is the right guy. This guy, that head, like that manager, that person that is the head of sales, he's there because I know he gets what the Aza is. He's there because I personally put him there. Like the executives, I personally put him there. Like at that level, I'm the one who puts him in there. I'm very involved when it comes to you. Then, like if you go down with their teams, if they're the ones responsible to hire their own people, I give them that task. You hire your own people. I don't want to be involved, but you know the standards when hiring people. This is the people that you need to hire. This is the qualities that you got to look for, and they need to understand that. So when I made them understand that, they hire the right people. And sometimes we miss. So last year, oh my god, last year I had the worst hires that could ever happen. People that were very expensive, people, and that's the thing. Like when I talk to other founders, is like, oh, I gotta hire, the people that have experience, that been in years in the business, and sometimes maybe that's not the right call, and that happened to me last year because I tried to hire experts, right? But they were here just for the money. You know, they came to the table, they put a price on the table. Look, this is how much I'm worth. This is how much you can pay me. If you want to hire me, that's it. They never ask questions. They never ask why the answer, how you guys doing this, how. And at that time, I wasn't smart enough to kind of take on those things, because I was like, okay, this guy's an expert. He's gonna bring a lot of money to the company. He's expensive, but whatever. Let's pay him. And I hired like five of them, and there was a lot of money lost because they didn't bring anything. They were not
Mm,
committed. They were, what I call 459ers. It's 459. They want to leave. Like I don't need people like that right now. I don't, and I understood that, by hiring them and losing money. So
mm,
so they know we can't have 459ers. We can.
mm,
You need some. Don't get me wrong. You need some people that are gonna be like that, and that's fine. But at the high level, we can't have 459ers. I need people that if I call them at 8 p.m. on a Saturday, they had to pick up the phone, and that's just the culture that we have. And if you're not ready for that, then you're not fit for me. You're not fit for this company because we're in a growing stage. And that's when I understood I need people that are willing to work double than the competition. So those head of departments, they know who they have to hire, and then they ask questions. Diego, look, I found this guy or this girl, and they have the traits, but they might fail in this. What do you think? And then I tell them, we look at the worst and best case scenario, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, I mean, we always look for somebody else.
Yeah, actually, that was my next question, but you answered already, which is what's the culture when it comes to like so-called work-life balance? But you've answered it, which means, I want the people right next to me at the very top to embody the same sort of like values I embody, which is, there's no days off. We're trying to create, well, where it's an early growth stage. We are trying to compete with people who have triple, quadruple our budgets. So you have to be even more committed as I am, or as at least at the very level at the same point. So it makes sense. I mean, this is the question that is being debated in Europe when it comes to the tech scene. A lot of people are discussing whether they should sort of like copy the Chinese model, which is working 6 days a week, some cases 7 days a week from, 9 to 9. So this is something that I think you probably also agree with. I have a question that is more political. Obviously, you're aware that Zoran Mandani went to the White House. And there's a lot of discussions prior to him becoming the mayor of New York that businesses will leave. But obviously, people have different opinions when they meet him in a meeting. You moved from Miami to New York, your business. What's the plan going forward? Do you have any thoughts about whether there should be a plan about relocating? Because this is an open discussion. I want to know from your perspective what you think.
We moved to New Jersey now, so that's it. Just all. Yeah, we have an office in New York, and it's hard, man. I think politics is a lot of talking, It's a lot of here, there, but when in reality, what happens is it might not be what he's saying or she's saying. So we just need to stay true to the facts. If something changed drastically in the way we do things, and it affects the company, I don't know, for some reason, taxes, we get higher taxes. I don't know, just to put something out there. We get higher taxes or we get things like that. We need to analyze that stuff. We need to see, hey, are we in the right place at the right moment? Do we have to really be in New York? Can we move to another state? Like, I'm willing to do that. I mean, Elon Musk moved from California to Texas. That was for a reason. That wasn't just because, oh yeah, I like Texas. So obviously that's another level, but definitely I'm always careful about those things, and I don't go by the noise. I go by the facts, and I do read a lot about these things, and it's gonna affect the company. I definitely need to take action to see what's the next move for us.
Understood. I mean, before we close, I want to basically understand what the future plans are. So obviously, you've stated that having a World Cup, and you kind of hinted at that already in this pod, having a World Cup team that you sponsor would be a goal. I think it's in play right now. But beyond that, the World Cup in the US is going to be a transformational period for football in the US and North America, but also the globe. What are your plans to take advantage of this value creation, to be a participant, but also to have the right structure in place to make sure that you're not just a bystander?
I think we're already ahead of the game, man. I mean, I said it 2 years ago, and when I started building Diaza, I was like, look, the World Cup is coming, the Olympics are coming, the Women's World Cup is coming here to United States within the next 5 years. So whoever is involved with soccer right now or has been involved before, it's gonna pay off because right now soccer is the business to be in the United States, and that's gonna bring a lot of money to the market. That's gonna bring a lot of people that wanted to wear a jersey. That's gonna bring a lot of people that want to play in a youth soccer academy. That's gonna be a lot of more leagues, a lot more fields, a lot more days. Is soccer is gonna be the business to be in for the next, I'll say, 5 years after the World Cup, So it's just going to increase. So now we just got to be sure that we can deliver, because the amount of demand that is going to be in the market, we need to make sure that we prepare for that. And that's exactly what we're going to do next year. Next year is the World Cup, but I think for us, the World Cup itself, it's not going to bring too many business. It's the after the World Cup, because for us, the World Cup, we don't really do much with the World Cup. It's just the passion and the noise it brings, right? But the World Cup is taken by the global brands. That's taken by those are the people that are gonna make money with the World Cup. The ASA revenue is gonna go up after the World Cup, after the noise, the fans, because they're gonna realize, oh, now I can put my kid on this league. Let me put them in there. Oh, now I can create a whole league. Let me put it in there. Obviously, we're gonna do activation because it's soccer, it's football, right? And we feel the passion, right? We, other than the business and the money, we also very passionate about this, and we're thinking about doing a tournament, a national tournament. We're doing. There's so many plans for next year that we definitely are gonna be related to the World Cup. Obviously, you have to take advantage of that, but the real money is gonna come after. So we next year more than the activation of the World Cup. I'm worried about setting the standards for the next 5 years. If I'm not mistaken, like I don't want to take on more next year. I want to kind of like, hey, let's sit down. We've grown a lot. Now let's focus on the systems. Let's focus on the right next steps that are gonna allow us to deliver for the next 5 years. If I don't do that and I just keep on selling, 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 I'm gonna crash within the next 2 years. So I gotta make sure that next year I build the whole bigger system for bigger delivery within the next 5 years.
We've gone into the final segment of this podcast. So basically, I want to just ask you quick questions and give me quick answers in that sense. So, I mean, you started at San Marcos in Bogota. Antonio Nerino was a school that you probably have the most fun memories or not fun memories. You know, looking back then at that age, did you think you'd be here where you are right now with these goals, this ambition, this vision?
Nah, no one bit. Not even a little bit.
So it's probably your favorite sport. Do you have plans to go into that sport in terms of like using the same strategy, trying to be a big sponsor, a big player in the sport?
Love it, man. Yeah, food toys. I love it, and my ultimate dream is to bring a whole professional league to the US. You know, they tried it before, even with Falcao. Falcao is one of the best players in futsal. He's from Brazil. They even came and he tried to do this whole league. I don't know why it didn't work, but I think there's tremendous potential with futsal right now. So I definitely have a plan for that, but I gotta find the right partners, because the right people that believe in this sport. We partner with some leagues that are futsal, and we have a lot of futsal teams, especially in the winter. In Chicago, New York, Michigan. Those things are like, people want this in the winter because they can't be outside. So I think futsal has a great potential. I just think they haven't been a good leader here in the United States that can bring it, the passion behind it. So maybe I am the one. Who knows? We'll see.
Who knows? Final question is, what books have basically given you the most key learnings about life?
Oof, I read a lot about business metrics, and how to improve the business. But before that, I read a lot about how believe in myself, because I think anybody that is building something new from scratch should need to have a lot of confidence, because if you don't have confidence, it's gonna be very, very hard, So I read about, I used to read a lot about confidence, so I read one book that I like a lot is the Shoe Dog, which is Phil Knight from Nike, how he built
Hmm.
Nike, how he was through the whole process. Is a great book. I read a lot about I read about players, so I read in Ibrahimovic, as Latin. His
Hmm.
confidence is crazy good, man. That his book is one of the best books that I ever read because I relate too much to him. He comes from the ghetto, he comes from the hood. He had to battle a lot of things. He had to build a personality that was, like, you gotta be strong, you gotta be, a dog, in the good sense. And I feel very related to that. So that book was very inspirational. There's a guy called Les Brown here in the United States, and he has a lot of books about confidence and stuff like that. So kind of those books I always read, and they're very helpful for to become the person that I am today, and the confidence sense. Then you get analytical, you get more about business side, revenue, P&Ls, all that kind of stuff. But I think you got to build yourself for your confidence, emotions to the level that you believe, hey, I can do this. I can compete against whoever is in front of me.
Yeah. That's basically it. Thank you, Diego, for being on the podcast. I think our listeners have learned a lot about you as a person, but also what Diaza means and what it's going to mean for the apparel industry going forward, but also more importantly for the sports and football industry wide. Thank you again for being on the podcast, Diego.
Maura, thank you so much for having me. It was a great talk. Always really nice to talk about the other in my own life. So I hope it brings some knowledge and some experience to your listeners.
Awesome. And that's Diego from Diaza, the CEO founder of this apparel company that is taking on a big strides in the area of football and apparel industry. If you like this episode, please do share and like with it and share with fellow minded people. Until next time, have a good one. Take care. Bye bye.